Hi, happy Thursday, everybody. This is Marissa Campbell with Art of Heart. And as we know, good things happen on Thursdays. And today we have an amazing story to share with you about the heart of someone who impacts so many other hearts. And so I'm excited to have Molly here today. She's going to share her story and the hard work that she's doing and the incredible impact that she's making on communities for not only our four legged friends, but our two legged ones as well. Welcome, Molly.
Thank you for having me.
I am super excited to learn more about what you're doing and your heart's behind it. So tell me a little bit about you and Saving Grace.
So, I started Saving Grace in 2004, officially incorporated it then. I worked in animal welfare um, in North Carolina for about 3 years before that. So, a couple of years with our local animal control and shelter. And then a few years after that, just doing different dog training and getting some experience in different avenues of animal welfare, and then started Saving Grace. So, we've been going on now for about 20 years. So have really grown over the years to save over about 55,000 dogs at this point and have definitely met a lot of great people along the way. It's often challenging, but very rewarding too.
55,000 dogs, that's a lot. That's
It's
like
a lot of
that's
dogs.
a lot. That is amazing. What made you like decide this was going to be the thing that you did with your life?
Well, after I graduated college, I said, okay, well, where do I want to work now? And I had been doing some fostering and gotten a little involved in animal welfare and animal sheltering. I didn't really know just how great the need was until I started volunteering and getting involved too. And, I just saw what a huge um, kind of hole there was, a huge gap for so many dogs in North Carolina. We are still number two and number three. We go back and forth with the largest number of euthanasias of companion animals in the country. So I didn't know that
Wow.
until I was working in it, and I saw, there's just this gap between those animals that are coming through shelters, mostly in the more rural areas, and people who are looking for really great dogs to adopt and might not want to go to a shelter where they feel like they don't necessarily know a lot about the dog, whether it's the temperament or the health. And so wanted to bridge that gap to bring those dogs whose really only option is euthanasia if they're not coming to Saving Grace with people who were looking for a great companion. And it started, really small. I wanted to learn about the behavior of shelter dogs specifically and how I could best match those dogs with families based on what they were looking for a long-term companion.
Yeah, it's really hard. So I am totally a dog person now. In fact, I would argue that I like dogs more than humans, by way, if I'm going to be honest. And my years and years ago, I was married, and my husband at the time wanted a dog, and he's like, "We're going to go to a shelter and we're going to adopt a dog." And I was like, "I don't know about that." Like, so we're supposed to interact for like 30 seconds and then know if this animal is for us. And so I had actually fought the entire situation. I didn't wanna go, and it's not that I didn't want a dog, it's just that I didn't know that I could make a decision in that, like, short interaction, and, like, what kind of dog person am I? And so, funny story, we went to the local Kansas City shelter, and we're walking up, and there's this huge picture window, and, as you're first kinda walking in the front doors, and this giant 150-pound Saint Bernard Great Pyrenees mix jumps up on the window and looks at me, and I swear, Molly, he looked right in my soul. And then this little 90-pound Saint Bernard Great Pyr goes around the other side, and she's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And though we adopted those 2 dogs, Larry and Lacy, they were brother and sister, and they saved my life. Like, they changed everything for me. And I knew in that very moment that those were my dogs. And there was no question, and I wasn't worried about, what was their behavior like or what they were gonna be like. I just know that they touched my heart. And I have a million hilarious stories and a lot of things we did right and a few things we did wrong.
Mhm.
But it was interesting because the way in which I met the dogs made this difference in the connection because we had been before and you'd walk up and down the aisles and it just never felt that spark.
Right.
And so it's number 1, it's super important work, but number 2, creating an environment where people get to have that magical experience, I
Right.
think makes a big difference in that because that dog now becomes part of your family.
Right, right, and so, also, a lot of times people don't wanna go to a shelter because they feel like, "If I don't choose that dog, then it doesn't," it might not have a chance for adoption, so they feel really guilty, and so I saw a lot of that when I was first working in sheltering, and people would say, "I just can't go there because I don't wanna see the reality," honestly, and, I think a lot of what happens in, you know, work that is really hard often is people just either they don't know about it or they might not want to do it because it is hard. And, you do see a lot of the hard things. And so I wanted to kind of bring those dogs to a space where people could come and say, so I didn't find anything today, but I don't feel guilty leaving. And I want to keep coming until I
Mhm.
find a dog that is right for me because that's, the happiest place for the dog and for you is to get a dog that's a really good match. And, a lot of people are set on a certain breed or a certain look.
Mhm.
And we try to encourage you just come out and visit and spend the time to invest the time in finding what's really great for you. Some people come and they get a dog on the first visit. Some people come 5 and 6 times, and, that's okay. We wanna have a place where they keep coming so that they can meet a dog that they're looking for and that's they're gonna bond with, and a lot of times, people come for a specific dog and get that dog, and a lot of times they get something completely different just because they've spent the time to sit down, visit with it, kind of bond with that animal. So, we really wanted to kinda give those dogs, sometimes to those dogs who aren't the prettiest dogs or
Yeah.
maybe they're not in the best shape. We get mama dogs who've had litter after litter and they just look, well, they are. They are just wrung out. They haven't
Yeah.
had the nutrition they needed. They've just fed litter after litter and they look like it. And, those dogs too deserve just as much of a chance. And so we try to put those out where they're going to meet everybody coming in. And, sometimes they get the chance to bond with people that might not have chosen them otherwise. And it's truly amazing to see them 6 months later. People send a picture and it's like, is that even the same dog? Just with good
Yeah.
nutrition and basic care and spay and vaccines, being treated for parasites, they have a completely different life at that point and look like a really
Yeah.
different dog. So trying to get those dogs out there and get them a chance, is definitely a mission also.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So your first, heart that you're gonna share with us, you called Celebration of Life, and I'm excited to hear about how from adoption to this new life with and companionship, I can't talk, what does that look like?
So when I first started Saving Grace, my main mission was, really to save the dogs that I saw that were just continuously, headed to the landfill, which that's hard to hear, but that's the truth of what happens. And, I really wanted to give those dogs a platform and a place to meet potential adopters. And I was really focused on that. And after years of doing it, I started getting so many notes from adopters that said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that this dog, was so special to me. They passed away recently, and I just wanted to let you know, like, how this dog changed my life." I didn't really see that side of it at first until I started seeing from that side, from the adopter side, how special that dog had been throughout its life and, what it had meant to the person. And, that's really special to me to be able to say, yes, that dog passed away and that's a really sad point for them, a sad season for them, but it's also such a celebration for me to say that dog died as such a loved, treasured family member, and otherwise it would have died alone in a shelter. And we have really great shelter people that work in our shelters, so I don't ever want it to sound like, you know, euthanasia there is is terrible. I mean, it is, but they definitely do it in a compassionate way for animals who have no other choice. But for a
Mhm.
dog to get to choose or get to be able to be in a home and experience how awesome people can be and what it's like to be a loved family member is more of a celebration to me than necessarily when they walked out the door and got adopted. So you've had a great life, and that's really special to see.
It really is because, you think about your focus on, like, you're saving these animals, right? But when you think about it in that light, you're saving a lot of people along the way too. I mean, think about folks who that is their only companion.
Yeah,
And that is the I will always argue that the love of a dog is so special, because you are the most important thing to them. You bring them all the joy, and creating that companionship for a human. So, like, you're saving all these dogs, which is amazing. And I have an incredible amount of gratitude for the work you do. But when you think about how that compounds with the people
yes,
and the companionship and the impact it makes in their life, for them to take the time, they've adopted this dog how many years before, to contact you and be like, "Hey, this dog passed, but you gave me this incredible gift."
right.
That's magical.
And you never know what people are going through. I've had multiples that say, my husband died a month before, and I literally could not leave the house for a month. And I got a dog and I had to leave the house. I have to get out. I have to walk them. I have somebody who is depending on me to get up and take
Yeah,
care of them. And it just, it gives you a purpose and companionship, and that's not something that I was that I think I saw to start with, that I was going in to save the dogs, and after, years of doing it, the stories just kind of kept coming and have been really great.
they make such an impact. So if you had to describe your heart on how you feel knowing that you made that kind of impact on another human, what does it look like?
It's happy for sure. There's, some hard choices along the way because I can't save everyone. We have,
Mhm.
a great program at Saving Grace, so we save a lot, but I still never forget the ones I'll never get to. But I have to focus on those that we did and all the happy that comes from that and the warmth and the gratitude that, comes from so many people who are grateful to have had that companionship, the shelters who are grateful for us to continue to show up and continue to help in partnership. And so it's a combination of the tough choices. Sometimes dogs aren't adoptable. They might come to us with such trauma, whether it's medical or behavior, that we have to make hard choices for them sometimes with what resources we have to provide, and can we give that dog the quality of life, a humane quality of life, for adoption. So there's a lot of pieces to it. It's not an
Mhm.
easy, it's always happy because it's not always happy, but for the most part it definitely is, especially seeing those people again who have had such a great life, or a dog who's had such a great life because of Saving Grace.
That's incredible. And I would imagine it takes a lot of people to make all this work. I mean, I know it's absolutely your passion and your mission, but I would imagine there's a team behind you that also shows up every day. What does
There
that look like?
there is a huge team. I could not do it without them for sure. So everything from, every it takes really every skill. So people who are super organized and want to do the paperwork side, computer side, records, social media, it takes all of that. So for people who aren't necessarily wanting to be one-on-one with the dogs, their time and their skill is just as important as those who are actually doing the feeding and the daily care. And it takes everybody. It takes fosters being willing to open their home for a dog who isn't immediately available for adoption when they come to Saving Grace. We have a lot of shelters that I work with who might get a dog that's been hit by a car, or a mom that's just had puppies, and to be able to give that dog a chance for adoption. First of all, we have to be able to get them through whatever situation they're in so that they can be vetted and they're ready for adoption into a home. So that takes a lot of coordination. It takes a lot of people giving their time and being willing to do the hard work too. So it takes everyone.
And I would imagine that there are folks who come and volunteer and they need you as much as you need them.
That's
So,
true. That's
what
very true. Yeah, so we have a lot of people who come out and volunteer. We have a volunteer team of about 400 people. So a huge volunteer team. It takes all of them to get all the pieces taken care of, from a dog, first coming to us, the dog that I choose in a shelter to come, all the way to seeing that dog out the door and even follow up later. So it takes everybody. And those are stories, again, kind of like the dogs that you hear in the end after they've passed away. A lot of times you hear stories about people who you eventually get to know really well. Some of us,
Yeah.
kind of become family at Saving Grace, for those who've been with us a long time. And people who've just moved into the area, they may not have any family, they may not know anyone, and they come to Saving Grace. Or again, somebody who's lost a spouse or has lost a child. We have those, and just say, I just need somewhere to go and have a purpose. We've had some people who were in abusive relationships and just felt no value. And at that point when I met them, we didn't know that. But years later, they say, I just want you to know what purpose meant to me, or how much purpose I needed to be able to just to kind of get my life back together. And of all the people at Saving Grace, we have the most unique group, because there's people of all different backgrounds, views. As long as you like dogs, we don't care. So
Yeah.
everybody's just kind of united in the love for dogs and the passion to make a difference for the dogs in North Carolina and see them through adoption. And so that's really fun to see, is just the hodgepodge of people and personalities coming together and caring for these dogs to give them a future.
And purpose brings things, it heals people's hearts and it brings things back to life. And you know, I spent a lot of time thinking that happiness or joy was over there, was somewhere, in the next turn. And what I'm learning more and more every day is that purpose, like whatever the purpose is, right? That purpose helps to drive to get you closer back to yourself.
Right.
And doing things to contribute. And you think about those 400 people who make this well-oiled machine work, that have saved tens of thousands of dogs over the years. That I bet you if we interviewed 100 of them, they would all have a story of purpose, and they would all have a story of how their heart was impacted by their work and their ability to give back. And that's amazing.
It is. It is. And seeing the dogs come in, sometimes they have little confidence, they're in poor shape, and seeing them through that transition, not only just while they're at Saving Grace, but seeing their follow up on our social media, or getting emails and saying how much we love the dog. It really does make it worth it for them as well.
So, obviously, this is not an inexpensive endeavor, even though you have volunteers. I'm sure there are lots of very costly things like vets and food and all of that stuff. Are you constantly in fundraising mode?
We are always in fundraising mode. We are always in adoption mode. We are always in the mode of just how many lives can we save and impact. And we try to, you know, save as many as we can with the resources that we have, whether that's fosters, adopters, volunteers, and funding. So it takes typically it takes a minimum of like $1,200 per dog that comes through. Our adoption fee is $395, so that's just a portion of the care that it takes. About 95% of our dogs have never had any veterinary care prior to coming to
Wow.
us, so we're not just necessarily starting with spay, neuter, and vaccines. A lot of times we are kind of going back and just starting. They're already behind the eight ball. Some of them, we have a heavy parasite burden. We're underweight. We might have other issues going on. And most of that is very treatable. It's very treatable with just basic care, vaccines, parasite prevention, nutrition. And, they bounce back. And it's amazing to see the resilience of some of these dogs. And they just do so well. It's amazing how quickly they can
Yeah.
turn around. And, the housing, we are mostly volunteer, but we have staff as well. We have to do that like any business. We have to have people who are definitely going to, be here and be accountable and help with some of those pieces that we can't. rely on volunteers for, but by far we're volunteer based. But all of those costs add up, and we have a great vet team that helps us on site with spay neuter and the care. And it does. It takes a lot of fundraising. The more funds that we have, the more animals we can save. And we rely only on donations. We have no public funding, so it's all on donations. And I would encourage anybody who wants to get involved in animal sheltering or animal welfare to go to your local shelter. You can certainly donate to Saving Grace, and that makes an impact through us. But if you're looking to become more involved or see what the local need is in your community, is to go there and to see what their need is, because our needs here are different from a state that might be next to us. They might have plenty of food, and same with us. Sometimes we have tons of dog food. We don't need any more dog food. We can only store so much. But we might have a different need at that time that we can let people know about. So going to your local shelter, reaching out and saying, "Hey, what do you really need now?" Sometimes it's not the fun things like dog treats and toys. A lot of people like to give dog treats and toys, and we like those. We need those, but
Of course.
we need cleaning supplies like trash bags, paper towels, and copy paper and stuff that's not really fun, but that's what
Yeah.
keeps us going every day and keeps, the business moving so that we can move the dogs into homes.
That's the reality though. And as the economy tightens or whatever's happening right now with our lovely economy, do you see that as an impact to you? Do more dogs go into shelter? Do you have a harder time fundraising? What does that look like?
So it does impact us for sure. Our donor base tends to tighten up a little bit when the economy isn't ideal. So, we see that as far as financially. And then we also see it on our adoption side a little bit because people are hesitant to get another dog because of all the vet care that comes along with having a pet. So we see that our adoptions might slow up a little bit sometimes, based on the economy. But we just do the best we can no matter what the economy is like. So whether it's COVID or a tough economy, we just keep plowing through and doing the best we can. And the resources that come to us are definitely what we pass along to the dogs we can help.
It seems like there's never an end. Like, I mean, you just rattled off 15 things that you guys need in addition to food and treats and all those things just to keep things running.
Mhm.
You don't think about trash bags, but of course you need trash bags, right? Like I would never if I was going to be like, "Hey, what can I donate to the animal shelter?" I would never think cleaning supplies, but of course you need cleaning supplies.
Laundry soap, yes, cleaning supplies, trash bags, paper towels, all those things that aren't the fun things, but they are used every day.
How do you keep the energy to keep this up? I mean, this is your job. It's also your dream and your mission. Those are three very specific buckets, but how do you keep this amount of energy up?
Well, I think the people around me that I can say sometimes I'm gonna tap out for a little while. So, but there's always dogs waiting too. So I always come back to it. Like I never get to the point where I say I'm done because there's always dogs waiting, and I know how many shelters don't have options if it's not Saving Grace. So if you don't show back up, it's kind of like we were talking about the volunteers and purpose. Like if I don't show back up, well, they don't get a chance for adoption. So, I always just find myself continuing to go back and continuing to show up for those dogs. And I'm super grateful for the people around me who sometimes say, let me take it for a couple days, or what can I help you with? And that makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, because as your battery runs low, as everybody does, everybody experiences burnout and everybody has times where they've had a really hard day or two and they stack up and you're like, I need a minute.
Yeah,
And to be able to have people that you can count on who are like, I'll carry the load for a little while,
right.
I'm sure it makes all these things possible.
It does, and also having people that I can say, help me with this or be a mentor, because sometimes in sheltering there's no right answer, and there's no easy choice for dogs. For dogs that come in that maybe have an injury that it prevents them from being an adoption candidate. Bringing them back and seeing that is tough, but for me, I want to be able to see or say, okay, I brought it back. Our vet team assessed it. At least this dog had an opportunity to be seen, get the care they needed. And, a lot of times people don't see that that dog didn't have an option. Um, if that didn't happen and maybe we have a hard decision to make, it seems like sometimes those kind of pile up on you. But, you just have to turn around and say, okay, how many dogs did leave today? How many dogs did get adopted? And just focus on that. But it can be hard to make those decisions for dogs that have nobody else to make the decision for them, though. And not everyone always understands that, and so sometimes that feedback is difficult to deal with too. But I'd rather have said, okay, I'm going to do this, even though it's hard, than to say, I think I might could have offered that dog a chance, or I think that we might have had the resources to save that dog. And I'd rather find out, take the time, put the heart into it, even though it's disappointing, and find out that I didn't, than to think, well, maybe we could have, because dogs come to us with unknown trauma sometimes. Maybe they're, sick or injured, and you don't really know until you have a full vet assessment what's truly underlying or what's there. So, yeah, so
Yeah,
there are
I could see how, like, there's a lot of hard decisions.
and there's a lot of people who are critical, of some of those decisions, because I don't think that they understand the whole picture. And,
Mm.
again, how many dogs are out there, and we want to be able to give them a humane quality of life. And sometimes it's you get a little vulnerable when you say, okay, I'll take it and make the decision, because some people aren't going to like the decision either way you go. So I think you just have to get confident enough to say, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to have the people who understand and support me and are willing to do that too. And I'm glad that I have that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great life lesson inside and outside shelter life is that a lot of times we have to make really hard decisions and you might only have part of the information. And it's really
Right.
easy to be like a sideline quarterback or to be the person behind the screen who takes judgment. But if you're not in those shoes making those decisions and hard decisions for something who cannot make the decision for itself,
Yes.
it's really easy to throw stones. But maybe for a second you could sit back and say, okay, that was a hard decision and great job for making it. I'm glad it wasn't me. But also, I may not understand the decision,
Mhm.
but I'm going to support you and I'm going to be kind and I'm going to understand that it wasn't my decision to make. That's an incredible life lesson all the way around.
It is. It is. And with something so passionate as, dogs and animals, it's easy to get attached to them, right? And of course you
Oh, yeah.
always think, oh my gosh, what a nice dog. But what is your future like, and what is the humane option for you? And sometimes that's super hard.
Oh, yeah. So as we think about your mission at Saving Grace and knowing that there's a lot of hard
Mhm.
and there's a lot of rewarding and there's a lot of good, what does your heart look like when you think about these hard things?
I would say a lot of gratitude, because I'm really grateful that I can do it, that I have the support system there to do it, that I've been able to um, I mean, so far I've made it. So I haven't tapped out totally yet, but I would say grateful, and also, sometimes it is sad, but overall I really just try to focus on the impact that we've made. And even for those sad situations, we impacted that animal for good. We gave it something that it wouldn't have otherwise had, access to care or a chance. And sometimes our fosters, they have to be just as vulnerable and say, I'm going to take this dog, and yes, it's injured and we think it's going to make a recovery. We're just going to have to monitor that. Our vet team's going to have to monitor that over the next few weeks and see how we're doing. And they're willing to do it too, and they give just as much effort and sometimes the loss of it too. But every time you do that, there's a lot more that come along and have a good outcome, a successful outcome. So, um, yeah, I would say that it's a combination of hard and grateful and happy and lots of things in one day. Those are not things over a year. We experience all of that in a day, every single day, pretty much.
Absolutely. One of the ways you described your heart is that there was a never-ending stream of dogs that needed to be helped and people who needed companionship. Companionship. I've said that twice now. Wrong. That's hilarious. Um, but that there's families out there who are going to be whole in the middle. And so you think about that complexity. And to your point, these things happen every day. This isn't like I had a hard season. This is every day. It's a cycle of the good, the hard, and the aha moments.
It's every day. It's, constantly dogs are leaving and getting adopted. And every day there's dogs coming in that need us. And we have to start from square one and say, okay, what are your needs? Like, we don't even know. We don't even know if you've ever had any sort of vet care before or what your experiences were. And like we just meet each one with where they are and what they're going to
Mhm.
need to be an adoption candidate. So, you've got 5 getting adopted and going out the door, and then you same number coming in, and I wish that I could see a day where we ran out of inventory, but I am never gonna see it in my lifetime, I don't think, in our area,
No.
because there are just so many that come in every day. It's really incredible.
Does the good outweigh the hard?
Yes, for sure. So, especially, at Saving Grace, we're able to see so many getting adopted and so many great people. So, definitely.
That's amazing. So, if you had to leave the podcast today with one, piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. Well, of course, if you're looking to adopt, go to a shelter, go to a rescue, invest the time in finding a dog that you feel really good about that's a match. No matter what it looks like, don't get set on a designer breed or what you think you want. Go out there and meet them, see what you think, spend a little bit of time, and then also, support whatever mission is important to you and go out there and get involved because a lot of people think, well, I'm not in physically great shape, I can't go out and care for these dogs. But we depend on just as many people to do all of the other side of getting these guys adopted and ready, as we do the actual care, and that's going to be the same in any mission. Other
Yeah.
organizations depend on all the pieces to make a difference. And you might just really meet a really great group of people and friends that you never thought you would meet and are so incredibly different from you, which is even more fun because it's different.
Yeah.
It's such we have such a different broad group of people that you wouldn't have met otherwise. And they really do enrich your life because they just bring so many different perspectives, which is really enriching.
It really is. I had a friend who used to tell me, "You never know how you can be a blessing in someone else's life until you try." And so this just reminds me of that. You're being a blessing to so many animals' lives and to people's lives, and they are also being a blessing to you. So what a cool story. Thank you so much for sharing your heart. And you guys, there will be links in this podcast for Saving Grace if you'd like to donate or volunteer or check them out. So thank you so much.
Yes, and our website is savinggracenc.org if anyone wants to look for more information.